Hello and welcome to another inspiring episode of Hello Yellow. Today I have with me Dr. Samantha Smith. She is the founder of Pinnacle Communications and also an author. Welcome, Samantha, to the program. Really great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, obviously I've known you for quite some time. You wear many, many hats, but your latest one I'm most excited about is the publishing of Harriets' Hungry Worms.
Thank you. Yes, Harriet's Hungry Worms is my new kids book.
Wonderful.
It's coming out in May and it's very different to what I do in my day job. It's been a labour of love for probably about 4 years and I'm really, really excited that finally got there.
So tell me, it was 4 years in the making, is that correct? So what inspired you to actually start writing about it and what is it actually about?
Yeah, sure. Well, so basically it's a kids book, obviously, and it is about a little girl called Harriet and each day she goes outside and she feeds her compost worms and one day they leave her a big surprise and it's a companion for eco-warriors and curious composters to get them on their eco journey. So it's targeted at ages 3 to 6 and hopefully it gets a lot of sustainability messages in there along with worm facts and composting facts in a fun and engaging way. So that's what the book's about, and in terms of what inspired me, my kids were learning a lot about it in primary school and they didn't really have a resource of fun, kind of engaging bedtime storybook to go with what they were learning. So that's what inspired me, and we sat down, we were on Magnetic Island of all places, probably about 4 years ago, and we just decided to write it all together and we wrote the first draft back then, which probably took a couple of hours and then took about 3 years of refining after that to get it right. So I wrote it with my kids, the initial draft, which probably doesn't resemble anything as to what it looks like now, but they were there at the start and they were really the motivator for me along the way to keep going because they were really keen to see it turn into a real published book. And that's what kept me going. It's
amazing. So I know that you're a massive environmental champion. So tell me, what are some of the challenges that you think the world is facing at the moment with the environment and the reasons why, you've got this really strong message to get out there, particularly in, the younger generation?
Yeah, well, look, I think one of the key important things is setting really positive environmental behaviours from an early age and getting our kids motivated to do that and making sure that they know why it's important to do that. So that's why I was really passionate about developing the book with the environmental message in it for kids so that they start really learning those messages early on, and they also bring it into the home and then parents hopefully get inspired as well. And I think, they're our champions of the future, and so that's why I've started really young.
And what are some of the key messages for someone like me that hasn't been brought up in being environmentally aware other than turn your lights off, pick up the rubbish at the beach, make sure that you minimise plastics? What are some of the key messages that you're trying to deliver to these kids?
So I think it's just that they can all do their bit, and even if it comes down to just putting your leftover fruit scraps in the compost bin when you come home from school, you're all doing a bit towards us getting a more healthier planet.
And why is it more healthy if you do that?
Well, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's better than putting it in landfill, but then we're getting a bit serious if I start going down those messages. But I think just starting giving them steps that they can do at home and that they feel empowered by, I think is really important. And I've noticed it with my kids that when they feel that they're involved and they're making a real difference, it's inspiring and it's empowering for them. And I think if we're going to be getting positive change in society, let's not forget our little people and how important they are.
So writing a book's no easy feat. So huge congratulations on that. I think I've got 3 or 4 different drafts that start and they finish after 3 pages and they go,
got about 97. Yeah.
So what are some of the tips that you have for aspiring authors that have, a number of different drafts sitting, on their computers ready to continue on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So look, I probably think to start with, it's just really important that you've got that conviction that what you've got to do is important, and you've got a really great idea, and that you believe in what you want to do. You've really got to have that sort of ego that you've got the best book in the world that's about to come out of you.
Of course
and just,
you do.
Yeah, and
really
hold
do.
on to that, because then it's just years of rejection after that. And if you hold on to that conviction that, you know, your idea is a good one, it helps to then take on the rejection as feedback, rather than, you know, you thinking, oh, I'm just going to throw it all in, which, you know, at a couple of times I did think that. But every piece of rejection is just feedback and another push down the path of you finding the right publisher for you. So I think it's really important that firstly you have that really strong belief inside yourself, that you're really clear on why you're doing it and why it's important. That was something that I did probably midway through my journey when I was about to throw it all in, was sit down and just work through, why is this important? Why am I even doing this? So whether it's times when you feel like, oh, I just want to give up on this because I'm sick of the rejection, or when it's times when you're thinking, I'm feeling really indulgent because I'm spending time on this and I've actually got a job that I should be spending time on.
And so many other things to do.
Yeah. You can sometimes feel really self-indulgent. So it's important that you've done that exercise so you know, no, this is actually important, and it's not just important for me, it's important for all these other reasons. So I think having that as well, and then just putting aside time in your week. I took my son to drama on a Sunday, and it was an hour and a half where I had to kill some time. So that hour and a half every Sunday was, I would only do stuff related to my book, whether it be, you know, clear my book emails or sign up for a conference or work on my manuscript. But it was giving myself that hour and a half of focus. And then you'll find that then picks up during the week. You'll tap back in again. But yeah, no, I think they're probably my key things. And just keep going. Keep going if you really believe in it. You know, I've got this motto which I've got in my office. It says, just keep swimming, and was something that I really clung to when I was writing my doctorate, which went on for years and years, and I just wanted to bin it a few times. You just got to keep going and put one foot in front of the other, have a plan, tick off some goals along the way. And if you've really got that belief that what you're doing is really important and worthy and the best thing ever, then you'll get there.
So what about those people that don't find it as easy to draw on that sense of self-confidence, which I think sometimes it comes later in age. I mean, some people are very privileged and they're sort of old souls, if you will, where they do have that innate sense of confidence in themselves. What about those people that don't? Would you suggest maybe, you know, asking a friend, or, you know? Yeah,
I think that's really important to have. I've got some really great mates, and I know who exactly to dial up when I need to hear what I really need to hear. I think that's really important. There's also, you know, writing groups that you can join, and I think just immersing yourself in those sorts of activities, like writing activities or conferences, getting into that world, you meet like-minded people and you get inspired, and it helps you keep your idea alive. That's what I found anyway. And I know it's really hard sometimes to back yourself, especially when you're getting a lot of rejections. But you know, you're not alone, and that's the journey of most authors.
And I think arguably, you know, anything in the arts, which this sort of kind of lends itself to, is it to not take that rejection personally. It's being able to segment that away so that it can continue to help drive you to your end goal.
Absolutely. I never take it personally. I always, I think publishers are pretty honest and pretty blunt, and they'll say, no, it's not for me, but here's some ideas and here's some feedback. And generally they're really generous with their time and their feedback. Often you get conflicting feedback and you've got to sit back and go, right, which path am I going to take? But I think just take every opportunity as another way to refine what you're working on and make it even better, and definitely don't take it on as a negative. I think that's what's always worked for me. And I think when I look back on the first manuscript that I wrote to the one that's in the book now, you know, it's nothing like it. and I still remember there's probably about 3 publishers who rejected me, and their feedback was great and actually shaped it into the product that it was today. So by the time I actually got to my fabulous publisher that published it, there really wasn't that much tinkering to do, and it's just really finding that right fit. And now that I've found them, that they're perfect for the story, and then they really appreciated it for what it is, and went out and found an amazing illustrator who used recycled materials to do the illustrations, and really
authentic.
Really connected us up, and it's been a great journey, but I wouldn't have got there if I hadn't have been rejected so many times.
And so, I mean, I obviously love, that's the linchpin of this show, is understanding that through adversity there's opportunity, and you clearly ran with that because of your ability to not take it personally and not sit in the corner and sort of suck your thumb and go, well, oh, woe is me, nobody loves me, everybody hates me, I think I might eat a worm. Pardon the pun.
Nice.
But I think, just even knowing practically the extent to which, you approach publishers. How many publishers do you care to admit? Or
wow. How many? I should have counted them before I came. I reckon I've probably spoken to maybe 10 publishers. And then sometimes you send it off and you just hear nothing. And then probably one of the most irritating is when they go, this is great, I'll get back to you. And then you don't hear anything. You're like, oh. I think you've always got to have a plan B. And I think that's what I learned out of the last thing, it helps pick yourself up when you know, okay, next step is this, and always having that next step, because if you don't have that plan in place, or deadlines, or working towards, something else, it makes the rejection a lot harder. So I think that was really helpful for me to always have goals, milestones, deadlines in place to then go, all right, they didn't like it, that's fine, my next one is this one, and know when that was coming up.
You wear many hats. So I know you said before that you ended up finding time when your son's at drama for that 90 minutes. I want to just go back to the point where you said midway, 2 years in, you were ready to throw in the towel. What was going on for you then?
Yeah, I think what was going on for me then is I was getting a lot busier in my work life, and I felt like I wasn't dedicating enough time to make this work. It was just that hour and a half where I was like, oh, what next? And it was becoming a bit of a chore. And then the kids were like, Mum, when are you getting published? I'm like, oh, be quiet. So, no pressure. So I had to really make that decision, am I going to continue to feel guilty about investing time in it? And I was actually doing a course in coaching, and we had to come up with a problem and get coached ourselves in it. And so I thought, my problem is going to be, should I bin this or should I keep it going? And I had another fellow student who had to be my coach in this mock exercise. So we went through it all and really went through, why is it important? Who else is it important for? What's it going to feel like when you achieve it? And we stepped through this in an hour, and I wasn't convinced it was going to work, but it actually worked. And then out of it said, okay, what are the 3 things I'm going to do? What are my blockers? And I kind of worked through all of that and worked out that I didn't have that dedicated time and I didn't have those milestones going forward. And once I sat down and went through that exercise, it kind of gave me the permission to know that this was important, and it was more important than getting that report finished and submitted. So I shouldn't feel guilty about prioritising it during the week. And then it just, lit the fire to just keep going. And so that was a really pivotal changing point for me. And I think it's what then got me to getting it published.
And I think mothers, I know you're a mum too, often, sit with guilt a lot, and you sort of referred to it a few times that it's sort of like it's a bit of a pleasure, it's a bit of an indulgence. How do you overcome that? Because being a mum, we just sit with the guilt a lot. I shouldn't go out, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. How do you overcome that? I guess it's a critic in a way, isn't it, of self?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you how, but I don't think I've overcome it.
Neither have I. That's what
I don't know. You always have that bit of guilt, and I think it's not until you reach a successful point where you think, oh well, I'm allowed to do this now because this is actually working for me. But really, I think to be your best self, you need to not kind of push creative things like this or whatever it is for you to the back, because it's all part of who you are, and it's all part of making sure that you remain the individual person that you are. So I wish I knew how to reduce the guilt. And I think if I had one piece of advice to my younger self, it would be just back yourself and give yourself permission to make that change or redefine yourself at any point in time. and own what you really want to be. I think that was one of the things I did very early on is you know, go out and say, oh, I'm a children's book writer, when I actually really wasn't. I was just dabbling in it.
You just fake it till you
Yeah,
make
just
it.
fake it. And then everyone's going, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, not much right now. But you've just got to own what you want to become. And then that then, in a way, forces you down the track and gives you that permission and then reduces some of the guilt along the way, maybe.
You wear so many hats. You are a successful businesswoman too, in a communications business that you set up a long time ago. So how do you actually find time for yourself?
Yeah, look, I have a really great support network. I've got a great family, awesome friends, awesome babysitters. So I've got that, but I tend to get up really early. I have a bit of a routine where I get up really early every day.
Tell us what you do.
I get up at about, depending on what I've got on, anywhere between 4 and 5. And then my very first thing is to make a coffee. And then sit down, go through my list of stuff for the day, get that sorted, and then I go off and do exercise for 45 minutes. So that's my kind of me time. And I make sure that I do that with people who, you know, are similar to me, have similar mentalities, are kind of inspiring themselves, so that I start my mindset in a really good way.
You've never invited me to come along.
I have.
I have. Blacklist. No,
I'm sure
messing.
It's a bit
we
awkward.
used to train a little
You're
while
really
ago,
welcome.
Yeah.
So I make sure that I really start my day surrounded by good people. And then, you know, then the world can kind of throw whatever it will or wants to at you. If you've got the foundations in place for the day, you just feel a bit better going through the day itself.
And I guess the message is, whilst you've got an amazing toolkit and such wonderful insights and actual mapping and toolkits, you do work incredibly hard. Things don't just come to you.
No.
You put in the effort, you take the time. And I know, and I've seen personally, you're very present in every facet of your life and the different hats that you wear. So, you know, a huge congratulations to you, Dr. Sam.
Thank you.
It's really a wonderful feat. And if people want to buy the book, how can they get their little hands on it?
They can get it online. So it's available for pre-orders through EK Books, and it's also on Amazon and Readings and Book Depository and a bunch of other online sites. So it's available in Australia and New Zealand from the 3rd of May, and then the following week it comes out in America and Canada and the UK.
Amazing. So depending on when you're listening, where you're listening from, you'll soon be able to get your hands on Harriet's Hungry Worms. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You've been incredibly inspiring. Thank you. We'll see you next time.